Some stories aren't whispered around campfires. They happen in the places you sleep, the roads you drive, and the devices sitting quietly inside your own home. Tonight, you'll hear 3 tales that weren't supposed to be shared, 3 encounters that left innocent people questioning reality itself. If you think you're safe in your neighborhood, safe behind your screen, or safe once the lights go out, these stories will change that. This is your final warning. Turn back now, or keep listening, and find out what's been watching you when you think you're alone. We bought a property. More accurately, we bought a big stretch of land that just happened to include an old farmhouse sitting on it. 22 acres, a pond out back, plenty of woods, and enough open dirt to build a killer bike track for the kids. They were already planning out where the jumps would go. The idea was to stay in the farmhouse while we built our real home, then eventually tear the old place down. Everything was on track, right up until we started cleaning. Let me be clear, we weren't starting construction anytime soon. The land alone drained us far enough to push the build more than a year away, maybe more. But for now, the farmhouse worked. It looked like it had been built just after World War II. Solid bones, decent size. Looked pretty good from the outside. But the wiring? Straight up antique. Could barely keep a TV, an Xbox, and 2 charging phones going without flickering. So we got busy cleaning. Every floor got swept, vacuumed, mopped. Every corner got dusted. Walls wiped down, ceilings too. Honestly, we made the place look way better than when we walked in. But the basement, man, that basement was something else. Old stone walls held together by crumbly mortar. The kids hated it, and even I felt a knot in my stomach every time I looked at the stairs. We put it off as long as we could. When it finally had to be done, guess who got volunteered to clean it alone? I took some bags, a broom, a couple bins, and headed down. I'm a grown man, not scared of much, but that basement? It crawled under my skin. Still, we needed space down there, so I got to work. Sweep, bag, haul, over and over. I think I filled 9 trash bags and 5 tubs with recyclables before stopping to take one last look around. That's when I noticed it, a thin crack in the far wall. It wasn't wide, but it stretched from the floor almost to the ceiling. I went closer. It zigzagged between the stones like someone had traced out the shape of a door long ago. I gave the stones a push, even tried pulling at the edges. Nothing moved. But the moment I leaned in, I felt a faint breeze brushing through it. A breeze. From a basement wall buried under dirt and grass. That whole side of the house had a mound built up against it. There was no logical way wind should have been coming through. Time passed. We settled into the house, kids upstairs, my wife and I downstairs. The basement stayed cleaned out, but the kids still refused to go down there. Every time I made a trip to grab something, that crack waited for me. And every time I walked by it, the thought hit me again. Where the hell was that breeze coming from? Eventually, I couldn't take it anymore. Curiosity ate at me nonstop. So one day, I grabbed a hammer and chisel and started breaking away at the mortar, right at the crack. Little by little, the gap widened. Soon, I could slide 2 fingers inside. And sure enough, wind was blowing from somewhere beyond the wall. I kept digging, praying I wasn't going to collapse the entire house on myself. Hours later, I had a hole big enough to lean half my body into. There was definitely an empty space on the other side, big, dark, and deep. I ran upstairs, grabbed a flashlight, rushed back down, and stuck my arm through the opening. When the beam cut through the dark, I realized the space went a long way back, much further than I expected. I needed the hole to be bigger. 2 more hours of hammering and prying went by. and finally, I had an opening big enough to squeeze through. Before I climbed in, I grabbed an extra flashlight. The kids were always burning through them during lightsaber battles, so I didn't trust just one. Excited but nervous, I crawled through the hole and stood up in the tunnel. With my light in front of me, I started walking. The ground sloped downwards and the air got colder the further I went. After about 20 minutes, the tunnel split into two. Great. Eeny, meeny, miny, mo. Screw it, I'm going right. I walked another 10 minutes. The wind hit me hard now, strong enough to push against me. I could hear insects chirping and birds calling. It didn't make sense. This tunnel had to run past our property line. After a few more steps, I surfaced through a small cave opening hidden out in the woods. I couldn't see the house from where I was, but I recognized the direction. By the time I got home, night was falling. I cleaned up and tried to forget about it. The next day, though, I couldn't stop thinking about the left tunnel. It gnawed at me. When my wife left to run errands, I grabbed the flashlights and headed back down. This time, the tunnel didn't seem the same. I walked and walked, but the fork didn't show up. I went further. Still nothing. What the hell? I doubled back, sweeping the wall with my hand until there it was. No idea how I missed it. Whatever. This time, I took the left path. This tunnel was way rougher. Sharp rocks, uneven drops, loose gravel. It felt much steeper, too. Almost a 30-degree angle down. After a few minutes, the tight walls opened up into a massive cavern. My flashlight barely touched the far side, but what I did see made no sense. Objects that looked like ancient torches mounted in the walls. Why would torches be down here? I climbed the stone steps leading into the center of the cavern. The moment I got close enough to see the walls, more details popped out. Scribbles, symbols, writing made from English letters, but forming no words I understood. Then, all at once, every torch burst into flame. The entire cavern lit up. And that's when I saw them, 10, maybe 15 figures standing against the walls. All of them in dark, hooded robes. Some held knives, others staffs. Their faces were hidden, but they whispered in unison, a chant, low and eerie. Behind them, the walls were smeared with what looked like dried blood. Symbols, upside-down pentagrams, drawings of sacrifices. And in the center, lying on a stone slab carved with runes, was my wife, naked, bound, terrified. What the hell? Laura! What's happening? Please, please help me. God, please. Standing over her was a massive old man I'd never seen in my life. Easily 6.5 feet tall, with a filthy white beard and wild hair. He chanted louder than the others. Takala, takun ra, Raj al takun la. What are you saying? Stop! His voice grew louder and louder. My wife begged through sobs, shaking uncontrollably. Then, he threw his hands up toward the ceiling, screaming the chant now. Before I could move, before I could even breathe, he drove both hands straight down into her chest like her ribs weren't even there. His arms vanished up to the wrists. My wife's scream ripped through the cavern. Laura! No! He fished around inside her, then yanked out her heart, still beating, and took a giant bite out of it. Blood ran down his arms, over his beard, dripped off his chin as he turned and smiled at me. My wife's blood in his teeth. Takalag Rajalal, Takun Rak. I dropped to my knees, screaming. Her body twitched, sagged, and started melting into the stone as she died. My chest caved in. My world fractured. The robed men stepped toward me. I bolted. I don't know which direction, I just ran. Faster than I thought possible, slipping on stones, smashing into walls, scrambling upward. Eventually, I saw the faint outline of the hole back into the basement and dove through it. I shoved everything I could find into that hole, Boxes, planks, metal, tools, anything to block it off. Then I sprinted upstairs, grabbed the kids' clothes and whatever else I could carry, screaming for them to get in the car. They asked questions, but I told them none of it could wait. Just move. We tore out of that driveway without looking back. Through tears, I tried to explain to my children what waited behind that crack in the basement wall. Okay, so apparently I'm losing it. Maybe for real this time. And not in that I'm so crazy haha roar XD way kids online joke about. I mean actually losing touch with reality. Sometimes my imagination runs wild, but this feels different. Did any of this even happen? Does anyone besides me remember someone named Abystigmata? I'd love to make this short, but I can't. It's too big, too strange, too real. At least I think it was real. I was told to just write it as a creepypasta, but honestly it barely needs any dressing up. If you want the summary, it's about a creepypasta fan who may have taken things way beyond listening. But please just read it. Here's how it went. I swear this really happened. It was sometime in 2010. I was watching one of the Little Fears videos on YouTube, and in the recommended sidebar, I saw another creepypasta video with a title that caught my attention. Don't walk down Walnut Street. Pretty generic, right? Except I lived on a Walnut Street at the time. So, yeah, I clicked. The uploader's name was Abystigmata. I later realized it was supposed to sound like Abby Stigmata. The video had close to 200,000 views already. The story itself wasn't anything groundbreaking. Your typical creepy tale with the usual paranoia-inducing vibes. But it ruined my sleep for days. Not because of the plot. Not really. What got me was the voice. The way Abystigmata read it. Jesus. It was the perfect voice for this kind of thing. A cold, smooth, unsettling Eastern European accent. The kind of voice that didn't sound like it was telling you the story. It sounded like it was the thing in the story whispering in your ear. That voice alone could have built his entire channel. And honestly, I think it did. I learned quickly that he existed outside YouTube too. Same username across a few sites. Reddit, DeviantArt, maybe others. He was surprisingly popular for someone who only read creepypastas. Some of his videos had 150,000 plus views. He even did one of those AMA threads on Reddit at some point. And nearly every comment fixated on that voice, that smug, eerie accent. I wasn't the only one obsessed. I binge-watched everything he made. His channel history went all the way back to around 2005. Every so often, he'd break character and post a short FAQ. Still in the accent, of course. There were 5 total up to 2010. The first one explained that he was Russian, grew up there, later moved to the US. Said he was in his late 20s and lived alone. Everything else was technical stuff. Editing, story sources, whatever. He kept his identity insanely private and never once showed his face. He didn't only read stories either. Sometimes he acted them out. Some videos looked professionally filmed, others shaky and handheld like Paranormal Activity knockoffs. Maybe a dozen total. Usually just 1 or 2 actors. Never him. The credits always said special thanks to usernames like Anaxholic or Josho417. Never real names. And weirdly, no actor ever appeared in more than one video. As I kept listening, something about him started bothering me. He always sounded like he knew a secret no one else did. Like, he wasn't just reading horror, he was enjoying it, feeding off it. But 2 things were what really pushed this whole situation into nightmare territory. and they're why I desperately need to know if anyone else remembers this man. The first thing was how he handled haters. He had tons of trolls, like any creator. The usual drive-by insults he ignored. But when someone really went after him, mocking his voice, calling him unoriginal, questioning his accent, he always responded. Most haters backed out after a single reply. If they didn't, if they kept at it, he always left the same final comment. I think I'll make a movie today. That comment always got top voted, and every single time, he would upload one of his acted out videos within the next 24 hours. At first, I thought it was just a weird inside joke. Then one day, everything shifted. About a month ago, I stumbled into a comment war mid-explosion. This time it was about religion, someone accusing him of being a Satanist or whatever. The user was named The Jorman, and he used the same name on multiple websites. I clicked over to his Reddit account out of petty loyalty to Abystigmata and downvoted every post he'd ever made. I know, pathetic. Whatever. When I went back to YouTube, I saw Abystigmata had responded with his infamous line. Feeling smug, I clicked back to Reddit to keep spying. But something had changed. All of the Jorman's comments and posts were gone. When I refreshed, Reddit glitched twice, then showed his profile again. But his username now read deleted. Everything wiped. Weird, but I shrugged it off. That night, Abystigmata uploaded a new acted video. Same story you've probably heard. The hunter in the cabin with portraits that turn out to be windows. Except he added a new section at the end. The hunter stumbling through the woods, gasping like he's sobbing, camera shaking violently. He drops the camera and the lens captures his blood-covered face as if you're lying beside him. Then, he's dragged away, and the feed cuts to static. I was about to click away when the credits popped up. Just one line. Special thanks to the Jorman. No other credits, no cast list, nothing. I searched for the Jorman's YouTube channel. It had been removed. Same as Reddit. I panicked a little and started digging through the other usernames mentioned in his past credits. Every single one, every last one, had accounts scattered across the internet, but all of them were inactive now, deleted, abandoned, wiped. Then I ended up on his DeviantArt page. His oldest drawings were disturbing as hell, like everything he made. But one picture, one image, I wish I had saved. It was titled Dark Harbinger, a fully edited black and white shot of a shirtless man with long black hair taking a mirror selfie in a disgusting bathroom splattered with blood. His hair covered his eyes, but he had this smirk, that same smug expression I'd heard in his voice. And behind him were huge black wings. Two details froze me completely: the posting date and the phone he was holding. The upload date was 2004. The phone in his hand was an iPhone. The iPhone wouldn't exist for another 3 years. I checked the metadata. No edits, no traces of manipulation, and then I made the worst mistake of my life. I messaged him. Everywhere. Reddit, YouTube, DeviantArt, even Tumblr. I don't remember exactly what I wrote. Something about the Jorman, something about the iPhone in that photo. He didn't respond. 2 weeks passed. Silence. Then he uploaded a new video. Just his usual format, black screen narration. Except it wasn't a normal creepypasta. It wasn't anything I could categorize. It felt wrong. Deeply wrong. Every time I replayed it, my heartbeat spiked like I'd seen a jump scare, even though it was just a voice. I transcribed it by hand so he couldn't delete it from my computer, with the accent included. Here's what he said. You are a young boy, 16, hair still nearly blonde. Don't even drive yet. You pretend you need to shave, Jordan, but you're only a child. You think yourself clever, hard to fool, jaded by the internet. You mock creepypastas and the people who read Gem. You type at your desk on that shiny white computer your parents bought you. You sneer. Stop watching this guy, you say. He doesn't try. He just talks in that probably fake accent. He's terrible. His fans are idiots. Very rude, Jordan. And you miss my hints. All of Jim. But when I come, you won't miss it. You'll get dizzy. Your screen will go black, and then bright camera light. You'll relax. Don't relax, Jordan. This is not a prank. It is only me. Now you cannot speak. Hunters never speak. You cannot move except to feels of fear. The fear is true, Jordan. And so are the pain, the blood, the darkness. Just as Xavier for Michael, and Joshua, and Rumor, and Anna, and all the others who pushed too far. But not the story. Remember, it is only a story. Creepypastas are not real. It is all just pretend. The audio lasted 2 minutes. The video itself was 3. The last 30 seconds were just a silent black screen. Until his voice returned softer, smugger, unmistakably directed at me. Does that answer your question, Emily? He said my name. He was talking to me. I froze. My stomach dropped. I replayed it 10 times just to prove to myself I wasn't hallucinating. Then I looked at the tags on the video. There were 4. Emily, my age, Walnut Street, and 4:35, the exact minute I'd clicked play. At the very end, for less than a second, a final line flashed on screen. I had to pause at the perfect frame to read it. Back when I was in high school, my friends and I had a very specific idea of fun. Like most teenage idiots, we loved causing trouble, but not in the usual ways. We didn't tag buildings, we didn't sling drugs, and we didn't shove freshmen into lockers. No, our favorite hobby was freaking out new parents by hijacking their baby monitors. We thought we were untouchable, too smart to get caught, too clever to face any real consequences. One night showed me exactly how wrong I was, and just how breakable my teenage ego really could be. It was usually the same 3 of us, me, Dimitri, and Kurt. Same school, a bunch of the same classes, and we'd chill almost every night after dinner. Our evenings were basically video games, prank shows, and rating who had the best body in our grade. One night at the park, we ended up swapping scary stories. Kurt brought up that old urban legend about the single mom who heard a stranger's voice on her baby monitor. I brushed it off as campfire nonsense, but Dimitri swore something similar had happened to his mom. She'd once picked up a neighbor's monitor and heard them singing to their baby over hers. That's when he explained it. If 2 monitors were on the same frequency, they could cross. I swear we all had the same idea at the exact same second. We didn't even have to say it out loud. One look at each other and it was like, yeah, we're doing this. Baby monitor hacking sounds impressive, but it's stupidly easy. All you need is a monitor that lets you flip through channels until you land on someone else's signal. I ended up buying a more expensive model with a tunable frequency so we could mess with as many people as possible. The very next night, we hit the neighborhood on our bikes, hunting for our first target. We found a typical suburban house where you could see the nursery window glowing faintly on the 2nd floor. Dimitri took the monitor and started slowly turning the dial. Static, silence then. Soft breathing. I remember getting this rush in my chest, like, holy shit, it actually worked. Dimitri pressed the talk button, took a deep breath, and in this fake demonic voice, whispered into the speaker, "Your little girl was delicious." The bedroom light snapped on instantly. A woman screamed so loud we could hear it from the street. We completely lost it, howling with laughter as we jumped on our bikes and shot down the road, hearts pounding, adrenaline buzzing. We did that sort of thing a lot after that. Over the next few weeks, we'd ride around, pick a different house each time, and take turns being the monster on the monitor. Some moms would scream, some would try to talk back in pure panic, and a few told us to knock it off, like they knew it was some jerk with a transmitter. One woman completely broke down crying, begging us not to hurt her baby. That one sticks with me now, but back then, we found it hilarious. We even mocked her cries later, mimicking her desperate voice. Yeah, we were massive assholes. Eventually, karma decided to catch up. One night, Kurt and Dimitri were stuck at home studying for midterms, but I was bored and cocky enough to go out alone. We'd already hit most of the nearby houses, so I biked to a different part of town. It wasn't hard to spot potential victims. Cars with baby seats, cartoon curtains in upstairs windows, plastic toys scattered in the front yard. I stopped in front of a house that checked all 3 boxes and left my bike where it wouldn't be seen. I fiddled with the tuner until I hit pay dirt. The soft, steady snore of a baby sleeping. My lips curled into the stupid grin. My heart started beating faster. I'm watching, I whispered, pushing out each word as creepily as I could. Nothing. The house stayed dark. No lights, no movement. Maybe they didn't hear me. I'm right over your bed, watching you sleep, waiting, I added louder this time. Still nothing. Just crickets and the dull sound of a car passing somewhere in the distance. That was weird. Usually parents reacted right away. I shifted on my feet, suddenly hyper-aware of how exposed I was on the sidewalk. It was late. I still had a long ride home, and the game was starting to feel less fun. Just as I started to push my bike to leave, the baby's soft snores cut off. For a moment, there was only silence, and then this wet, bubbling sound came through the monitor. I froze, thinking the kid was waking up and about to cry. Instead, a man's voice drifted into my ear. You're the one being watched now. Juan. The bottom dropped out of my stomach. How did he know my name? Every instinct in my body screamed that something was wrong. I slowly lifted my head and looked up at the nursery window. A tall shadow stood there, motionless, clearly staring out at me. The air felt thick and heavy, and for a second, I couldn't seem to take in a full breath. A trembling started in my hands and spread through my whole body. I dropped the monitor into my pocket, hopped onto my bike, and pedaled as hard as I could, trying not to look back. I kept telling myself I was being dramatic, but the need to get away overpowered any attempt at logic. You can't run, Juan. I know where you live. The voice kept coming through the monitor, even as I turned at the end of the street. I didn't stop until I reached a busier road. Lights and cars all around me, a few people jogging with headphones in. Being near other humans made me feel safer. Your hoodie will be soaked in your blood, boy, the voice whispered again, close enough to feel like it was inside my head. I yelped, loud, embarrassing, panicked. A guy jogging past me shot me a disgusted look as I clawed at my hoodie like it was covered in spiders. To him, I probably looked like some high kid losing his mind. He muttered something under his breath and ran on. He had no idea I was genuinely terrified. As I ripped the hoodie off, I realized which one I was wearing. My school jacket. My name was printed across the back. That's how he knew me. That's when it hit me. Baby monitors don't have huge range. If I could hear him this clearly, he had to be nearby. Maybe following me. I scanned the area, trying to pick out who it could be. The parked van with the windows blacked out? The guy walking his dog on the opposite sidewalk? The car that had just turned the corner? I couldn't tell, and I didn't want to hear that voice anymore. I shut the monitor off and shoved it into my backpack, then started pedaling home again. Fear turned everything into a threat. The rustling leaves, the crunch of gravel under my tires, every engine that hummed past. I flinched if anyone came too close, convinced that any second, a hand would grab my shoulder, or a car would pull over and a door would slide open. But nothing happened. Somehow, I made it back. I parked my bike in the garage and crept inside, heart still jackhammering. I went straight to my room, tossed my backpack and the monitor into a corner without looking, and dove under the covers like a little kid. I don't care how old you are. When you're scared, the blanket feels like a shield. I lay there in the dark, trying to slow my breathing and convince myself I'd overreacted. Maybe it was some edgy teenager messing with me, the same way I'd messed with strangers. Maybe it wasn't that deep. Then I heard it, the soft hiss of static from the baby monitor. The monitor. I know I had switched off. Sleep well, Juan. The voice slid through the crackling noise, calm and far too close. I didn't fall asleep at all that night. I stayed frozen under my blanket until sunlight crept through my curtains. When I finally climbed out of bed, my first move was to grab that monitor, rip the battery out, and drop the whole thing in the trash. I didn't care what excuse I'd have to give my friends. I was done. I slapped together a half-assed story to tell Kurt and Dimitri so I wouldn't sound like a complete coward. With dark circles under my eyes, I got dressed, choked down some breakfast, and dragged myself to school. It wasn't until a few days later that I saw the house from that night on TV. The news anchor's voice was serious, the kind of tone they use for tragedies. A police officer stood in front of the house I'd been outside of talking to a reporter. He explained that a mother, father, and their baby had all been found dead in their beds, throats slit. I had been outside that house while the killer was still there. He'd heard me talking on the monitor, and he'd decided to play along. It hit me like a truck. How close I'd come to being another body they carried out. I was too busy being relieved that I'd survived to really process what had happened to the family. Back then, my empathy didn't reach far beyond the edges of my own skin. That changes when you grow up. Now, I'm an adult. I have a wife, I have a daughter. I own a baby monitor for the exact same reason those parents did, to feel like I can keep my child safe. And with that comes a different kind of fear, a heavier one. The kind you don't understand until you'd gladly trade your life for someone else's. I used to think the horror of that night was the peak of terror. Turns out it was just the first rung on the ladder. Because last night, long after my daughter fell asleep and the house went quiet, I heard something come through our baby monitor. Something that froze my blood and made it hard to breathe, the same way it had all those years ago on that sidewalk. A voice, familiar, patient, whispering through the static, "I'm still watching." Now, if these stories taught us anything, it's that the things we dismiss as jokes, coincidences, or imagination can become the very things that destroy us. A crack in a basement wall, a forgotten YouTube channel, a baby monitor whispering in the dark, none of them should be dangerous. But for some people, they open doors that should have stayed closed. So tonight, when your house settles, when your phone flickers, when you hear something through your walls, ask yourself, is it just your mind playing tricks? Or did you just hear the beginning of your own story? Thanks for watching. Stay safe, sleep lightly, and try not to listen too closely to the sounds you hear after midnight.